بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are continuing the commentary on one of the most important sermons of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam in Nahjul Balagha, and that is the sermon, the controversial sermon and the famous sermon by the name of Shaqshaqiya. And in the sermon, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib talks about the Khilafah, and he talks about his role with regards to the Khilafah and how 3 times the Khilafah was taken away from him, even though he was appointed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even though he was the most qualified individual to take on the position of Khilafah. Khilafah means leadership after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we explained in the first 2 sessions that how the first one came and he took the Khilafah from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, and then he passed it on to the second Umar ibn al-Khattab. The first Abu Bakr took it, and then he passed it on to Umar ibn al-Khattab, and then Amir al-Mu'mineen described how much carnage and how much difficulties and challenges and problems emerged as a result of those 2. And then he says, فَصَبَرْتُ عَلَى طُولِ الْمُدَّةِ, but I was patient. Abu Bakr ruled for 2 years, and then Umar came and he ruled for 10 years. So now you have 12 years, Amir al-Mu'mineen is patient. Now, Amir al-Mu'mineen, in this part, we're going to talk about how the Khilafah was once again taken from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, and Uthman was appointed as the Khalifa, and he ruled for 12 years. So now Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Khilafah finally came to him after 24 years after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Finally, the Khilafah comes to him. I'm going to just read the part from the sermon, and then we will explain it. He says, فَصَبَرْتُ عَلَى طُولِ الْمُدَّةِ وَشِدَّةِ الْمِحْنَةِ حَتَّى إِذَا مَضَى لِسَبِيلِهِ جعلها في جماعة زعم أني أحدهم فيا لله وللشورى متى اعترض الريب في مع الأول منهم حتى صرت أقرا إلى هذه النظائر لكني أسففت إذ أسفوا وطرت إذ طاروا فصغى رجل منهم لضغنه ومال الآخر لصهره مع هن وهن إلى أن قام ثالث القوم نافجا حضنيه بين نثيليه معتلفه وقام معه بنو أبيه يخضمون مال الله خضم الإبل نبتة الربيع إلى أن انتكث عليه فتله وأجهز عليه عمله وكبت به بطنته. So Imam Ali alayhi salam, he describes how the Khilafah was taken away from him in this part, in this segment of Al-Khutbah Shaqshaqiya. First, the Saqifa. And we all know, we explained what the Saqifa was. The Saqifa was when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had just passed away, the Ansar, you have the Muslim community in Medina is 2 groups. You have the Muhajirin and the Ansar. Muhajirin are those who migrated from Mecca to Medina. They are the Muhajirin because they did hijrah, they migrated. And then you have the Ansar, the helpers. So the Ansar, they were gathered in the Saqifa because they were feeling that something was going to happen. They were gathering there, they were feeling that there's going to be a group of people that are going to rebel against Imam Ali. So they were saying, if someone's going to take power, it has to be us. While they're sitting there and they're just talking, no one is giving bay'ah, no one is doing anything. They're just discussing amongst themselves. You have 3 individuals, Abu Bakr, Umar ibn al-Khattab, and a third by the name of Abu Ubaid al-Jarrah. Abu Ubaid ibn al-Jarrah, they go And there, suddenly Umar, he says, the Khalifa, the Khalifa of Rasulullah is Abu Bakr, and he gives them bay'ah. And the Ansar, they were two groups, the Aus and the Khazraj. They were divided amongst one another. The Aus, they come and they side with Abu Bakr, and then that's it. Then they start forcing the bay'ah to be given to Abu Bakr. And then after that, they go and they attack the house of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam to take out Amir al-Mu'mineen and to force the Khilafah and to silence any opposition that there may be against the Khilafah of Abu Bakr. Then after 2 years of Abu Bakr ruling, Abu Bakr is on his deathbed, he appoints Umar ibn al-Khattab. Now remember, they said that the Rasulullah does not appoint. No one has the right to appoint. This is a matter that has to be with the Muslims. But anyways, Abu Bakr appointed Umar ibn al-Khattab. Umar ibn al-Khattab rules for 10 years. Now, at the end of his life, he was assassinated. A man by the name of Abu Lu'lu'a, he came and he stabbed Umar ibn al-Khattab, and Umar ibn al-Khattab became injured. And then after that, he thought of a plan to choose the next Khalifa after him. So you see that each time there was a different method of choosing the Khalifa. First, it was the Saqifa, a group of people, and it was a big mess. And these are not according to our words. These are according to the words of Umar ibn al-Khattab. He says the way of choosing the Khalifa and the Saqifa was a fitna, waqallahu sharraha. It was a fitna that Allah protected us from its shar, from its evils. And then later on, Abu Bakr, he appoints Umar ibn al-Khattab. And then now, Umar ibn al-Khattab, he thinks of a genius way of appointing the next Khalifa. But you will see that this was such a sloppy way and such a rigged way, and it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense in the way the third Khalifa was chosen. So Amir al-Mu'mineen talks about this in Nahjul Balagha. Here, Umar ibn al-Khattab, he says, I know what to do. We're going to pick 6 men from the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa. He says, after I die, I want these 6 men to gather in a room, to gather in a place. And I want them to decide who the next Khalifa is amongst these 6 men that he nominates. Who are these? Ali ibn Abi Talib, Uthman ibn Affan, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and Talha ibn Ubaidillah. So he says these 6 men, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Uthman ibn Affan, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and Talha ibn Ubaidillah. These were the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. He says they have to gather in a room, and they have 3 days to pick the Khalifa. During those 3 days, Suhaib al-Rumi, he's going to be the sitting Khalifa for those 3 days. Now, he says if they disagree, if you have 3 on one side and 3 on the other side, then support should be given, in my opinion, in his opinion, is with the group, the Khalifa should be with the group that Abdul Rahman ibn Auf sides with. Now, why Abdul Rahman ibn Auf? Who knows? He comes and he says the support should be given. So it's already rigged. It's not even, it's 6 individuals. And then the side with Abdul Rahman ibn Auf is the side that basically should be supported. And if anyone disagrees with the opinion of Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, then there are 50 men who should be outside, and they will kill whoever goes against this verdict. So this is a way of choosing a Khalifa. And remember, the Khalifa is someone who's the divine representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Someone who explains the Quran, someone who teaches us what Islam is, someone who should be following in the footsteps of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa. This is the way that supposedly he's going to be chosen. six people out of the Muslims, and then the side with Abdurrahman ibn Auf is the side that is supported, and if anyone goes against it, they're going to be killed. Now there are several issues with this. The first issue is that Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, he's trying to say that Umar and Abu Bakr's Khilafah, they were illegitimate to begin with. How can Abu Bakr come and choose Umar when his Khilafah was illegitimate? It wasn't by the order of Allah, and it wasn't by the order of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And according to Umar, it was a falta, it was a mess. So he came and he appointed Umar. And now Umar, who was unlawfully the Khalifa, according to Amir al-Mu'mineen, through what he's trying to say, is now he comes and he brings this mess. And the reason why it was such a mess, some scholars and some, they say that Umar, he came and he thought of this plan because Umar was actually intoxicated. Umar was hallucinating during the time of his death. They say, and this is a hadith from Bukhari. He says that when Umar was stabbed, so they came and they brought him some milk, some laban. They brought him some milk, and he began to drink from it, and it began to come out of his sides. So he tells them, bring me nabidh. What's nabidh? Nabidh is wine. He says, bring me some wine, and he began to drink wine in his last moments. And during his last, however long he remained after he was stabbed, he was drinking wine. And this is in a hadith that is narrated by Bukhari. I looked it up today. So, and the irony here, when someone drinks wine, when someone drinks alcohol, what happens to them? They become intoxicated. They become drunk. The irony is that he was intoxicated because he was drinking wine, and he comes and he makes this weird way of choosing the Khalifa, this weird way of choosing the leader. You have 6 men, whoever does not agree with the minority, they should be killed. And this weird way that we've never heard of. Rasulullah never did anything like that. Rasulullah never said anything like that. It's not in the Quran. In fact, the Khilafah is inni ja'ilun. It must be something. The Khilafah must be appointed by Allah. There's nothing about being appointed by God. No one, there's not a mention of someone being appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's intoxicated and he's telling people, this is how you choose the 3rd Khalifa. And the irony is that also Bukhari says that when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi was on his deathbed, Rasulullah tells them, Ituni bidawatin wa katif. Bring me a pen and a shoulder. They used to write on the shoulder of the lamb. He says, Ituni bidawatin wa katif li'aktub lakum ma lan tadillu ba'dahu abada. So that I tell you to write something that you shall never go astray after it. Meaning, I want to write my will. You know what Umar did? Umar, he says, Inna ar-rajula la yahjur. The man, he doesn't even say Rasulullah, the Prophet. He says the man is hallucinating. Leave him. He doesn't need to write. Right now, he's not even in his right mind. This is how they talk about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But now, if, for example, someone comes and says Umar was, had drunk wine, according to Bukhari, some they say, how can you talk about Umar in that way? So is it okay for someone to talk about Rasulullah? Is our ghira, we worry more about others than we worry about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi? Anyways, so now he's injured, he's hallucinating, he's drinking nabidh, and now he thinks of this marvelous idea. It's a shura. Basically, today some people, they come and they say the khilafah, the Prophet should not appoint the leader because the leadership it goes back to shura. The Muslims, they choose. Just as the Muslims, they chose Abu Bakr, even though in the Saqifa there was just a handful of Muslims. And Umar was not chosen through the shura. And Uthman, what kind of a shura was it? Shura means council, meaning democracy. Let the Muslims choose. So if it's Muslims have the right to choose, then why is it that only these 6 men? Why is it that only these 6 men? Today, in the view of the majority Sunni Muslims, they say that the Muslims, the Sahaba of Rasulullah, they're all udul. The theory is that they're all good men, they're all good individuals, they don't do anything haram. So why did Umar ibn al-Khattab only choose 6 of these men? Why did he not choose all of the other Sahaba? Are there some Sahaba that are better than other Sahaba? I don't know. That's what we say. We, the Shias, we say that there were some Sahaba that deserve and they're worthy of us following them and appreciating them and learning from them. And there were others who were hypocrites. There were others who were sinners. There were others who did wrong. But they come and they say, no, you Shias, you talk bad about the Sahaba. So why is it that Umar ibn al-Khattab, he only chose 6 and he didn't choose all of the other Sahaba? This is one question. Another, why is it that Abdul Rahman ibn Auf is the deciding factor? What's so significant about Abdul Rahman ibn Auf? Yes, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf was one of the wealthiest of the Sahaba. He was one of the wealthiest of the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But is it wealth that grants who gets to decide here and there? Isn't it about taqwa? Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum? Isn't it about those who were the first to join the religion of Islam, those who sacrificed the most, those who did the most? Of course, if you want to measure with that, then of course it would be Imam Ali alayhi salam. And then the other issue, why should the minority be killed? If, for example, I am in the minority group and I did not agree with the others, why is it that my blood becomes halal? Have I committed a crime? Have I done anything wrong? We have the freedom of expression. We have the freedom to say, no, I don't want this person. I'm not happy with this person. Why is it that someone who's in the minority, if they don't agree, they should be killed? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, if someone has killed someone, then yes, there's capital punishment in Islam. If someone did something wrong, oppression, they did something that is involved killing other people, then they're killed. But if someone has an opinion that doesn't go with the popular opinion, does this mean that this person has to be killed? Here, once again, this was the ruling of Umar ibn al-Khattab. So here, according to the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahjul Balagha, in this part of the sermon, he says that the system, other than all of these things, it's only 6, why Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, why should the minority be killed, and all of these other issues, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he comes and he tries to point out that the system that they placed him a part of with the 5 others was a rigged system, was a messed up system. And it was set up in a way where the Khilafah would never go to Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now someone might come and say, okay, here are 6, let them come and choose. No, but it wasn't just like that. The 6 individuals that were chosen, they were individuals that had biases against Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. So there was a guarantee that Imam Ali was not going to be chosen. How so? It was Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salam, and then you have al-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. Al-Zubayr, his mother was from Bani Hashim. So he is related to Imam Ali alayhi salam. So the only person who will side with Imam Ali is al-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. He's related to Imam Ali from his mother's side. And in fact, on the day of the attack of the house of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, al-Zubayr, he drew his sword. He drew his sword and he was ready to fight for the sake of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he was standing in defense of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now, subhanallah, al-Zubayr, later on, he was killed in the battle of Jamal, fighting against Imam Ali alayhi salam, as we will point out later. And there's other reasons that came in the way. But al-Zubayr, he was with Imam Ali and he sided with Imam Ali. And on the day of Saqifa, he was with Imam Ali. But you have 24 years. You have about 24 years, things changed. And Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, مَا زَالَ الزُّبَيْرُ مِنَّا أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ حَتَّى نَشَأَ إِبْنُهُ. He says, al-Zubayr, he was with us, the Ahl al-Bayt, until his son grew older. Abdullah ibn Zubayr, his son grew older and he shifted and he made his father be against Imam Ali alayhi salam. And we will, inshallah, explain this in the upcoming sessions. So the only one who sides with Imam Ali is Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. And then you have on the other side, you have Uthman ibn Affan, who's from Bani Umayyah. Now, the Umayyads, they have major issues against Bani Hashim. Abu Sufyan is from Bani Umayyah. Muawiyah is from Bani Umayyah. There are several individuals from Bani Umayyah that hated Imam Ali and hated Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They could not stand Imam Ali. Probably they had more hatred to Imam Ali than even Rasulullah. Why? Because it was the sword of Imam Ali that was dripping with their blood. In the battle of Badr, in the battle of Uhud, in the battle of, in the battles of Khandaq and other battles, it was Imam Ali alayhi salam who was the sword of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So some, they hated and despised Imam Ali alayhi salam. They literally, they hated Amir al-Mu'mineen. So Uthman ibn Affan, he's from that family, Bani Umayyah. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, he is also related to the Umayyads. In a way, he's related to Abdurrahman ibn Auf. And Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas is also from Mecca, from Quraysh. And he also hated Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, you know who his son was? His son was the general of the army that fought and killed Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, Umar ibn Sa'd. So you have Umar, the son of Sa'd, and this man, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, he was one of those men who also had hatred for Imam Ali alayhi salam. And he never voted, he never sided with Imam Ali alayhi salam. So Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, he's also in the sixth. So you have Uthman, he's definitely Bani Umayyah. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, he despises Amir al-Mu'mineen. And then you have Abdurrahman ibn Auf. Abdurrahman ibn Auf, the third individual, he is married to Uthman's sister. He's married to Uthman's sister. So obviously at that time, these relationships and marriage, these are going to strengthen ties. So he's definitely going to be voting for Uthman. And then the fourth individual is Talha ibn Ubaidillah. Talha is from the same tribe as Abu Bakr, the tribe of Taym. Quraysh, the tribe of Quraysh, there were several tribes. You have the tribe of Bani Hashim, for example, Umayyah, Bani Umayyah. And you also have the tribe of Taym. Taym is the tribe of Abu Bakr. Talha is from the same tribe as Abu Bakr. And after Abu Bakr was chosen as the Khalifa, there were some issues between Bani Hashim and between Taym, the tribe of Hashim and the tribe of Taym. So Talha, he had issues against Bani Hashim. And obviously, that means he's not going to pick someone from Bani Hashim, because at those days, it was all about tribes. Even if someone was qualified, I'm not going to choose someone over my tribe. And since they gave my man a difficult time, then I'm not going to choose anyone from them. So you have a rigged system against Imam Ali alayhi salam. You have Uthman, who's from Bani Umayyah. You have Talha ibn Ubaidillah, who's from Taym. You have Abdurrahman ibn Auf, who's married to the sister of Uthman. And you have Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, who also has hatred for Imam Ali alayhi salam. And Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, he says, I give my vote to Abdurrahman ibn Auf. Whoever Abdurrahman ibn Auf chooses, then my vote is also with him. So the only one who sides with Amir al-Mu'mineen is Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. So what ended up happening? Now some, they come and they say that Talha was appointed by Umar, but Talha was not even present, that he wasn't even there. So either if he was there, he definitely voted for Uthman, or he would have voted for Uthman. So it was a guaranteed for Uthman. But even if he's not there, you have, in another way, it's rigged towards Uthman. So the only one who would vote for Imam Ali is Az-Zubayr. And all the others, they would side with Uthman because either of family issues or because of their own hatred. So what ended up happening was that Az-Zubayr, Talha, when they gathered in the room after burying Umar ibn al-Khattab, they came and they gathered in the room and they had 50 men standing with swords outside the room. They gathered in the room. Immediately, Talha, he knows it's not going to come to him. There are others that have higher rank and higher chances of receiving it. So right away he says, I give my vote to Uthman. So Uthman has one vote now. Zubayr, he says, he knows he's not going to receive it. So he says, I give my vote to Ali ibn Abi Talib. So now Uthman has one vote, Ali ibn Abi Talib has one vote. Now, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, he said, I'm not going to vote. He said, my vote is the same vote as Abdurrahman ibn Auf. So he says, whatever Abdurrahman ibn Auf chooses, I'm going to agree with. So now the issue comes down to Abdurrahman ibn Auf. That was it. Talha voted for one. Az-Zubayr voted for one. And if, according to the opinion, there are difference of opinions. Some say that Talha was not there. If he was not there, then Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas's vote would fill in the vote of Talha. So anyways, it would still work out against Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib. But according to some, they say that no, Talha was there. He voted for Uthman. Zubayr voted for Imam Ali. And then you have Abdurrahman ibn Auf. He came to Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. He tells him, I will vote for you. But he knows that Amir al-Mu'mineen is a man of principles. He knows that Amir al-Mu'mineen is a man who sticks with his values and his principles, and he's not going to compromise. So he gave him a difficult situation, a difficult circumstance where Amir al-Mu'mineen would have to say no. He tells him, I would vote for you. But if I vote for you, you would have to follow the sunnah. You have to follow the teachings of the Quran. And you have to follow the sunnah of Rasulullah and the sunnah of the Shaykhain, Abu Bakr and Umar. You have to follow their tradition. If they said this is halal, you have to follow it. They said this is haram, you have to follow it. And as we know, Umar ibn al-Khattab, he changed many things. Many things. For example, Hayya ala khair al-amal, he took it out of the adhan. He made the Muslims start praying Salat Taraweeh. He made the Muslims fold their hands while they're praying. Several things. So he tells Amir al-Mu'mineen, if I vote for you, you would have to follow what God said, the Prophet, and Umar and Abu Bakr. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, no. I will, if I'm a leader, I will follow the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah and my ijtihad and my understanding of Islam. So right away he tells him, okay then, I'm going to go to Uthman. Oh Uthman, if I give you the Khilafah, will you follow the Prophet and the Shaykhain, Abu Bakr and Umar? He tells him, yes, of course I will. It gives him his hat and he gives him allegiance. Now, Abdurrahman ibn Auf voted for Uthman, and the vote of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas goes to Uthman, and the vote of Talha goes to Uthman, and then you have Amir al-Mu'mineen and Az-Zubayr. They were forced to concede and they were forced to accept the results because you have 50 swordmen that are outside that are going to kill them. And what's the point of coming and standing and being in the minority when you're not even going to get anything? So now Abu Bakr had ruled for 2 years. Umar ruled for 10 years and Uthman ruled for 12 years. So Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he is sitting without a position and he is the Khalifa of Rasulullah for 24 years. So now we will read Nahjul Balagha from the Khutbah Shaqshaqiya and we will explain this. He says, صَبَرْتُ عَلَى طُولِ الْمُدَّةِ I was patient during the whole time, despite the length of period and stiffness of trial, meaning during the time of Abu Bakr and Umar. And then he says, حَتَّى مَضَى لِسَبِيلِهِ جَعَلَهَا فِي جَمَاعَةٍ زَعَمَ أَنِّي أَحَدُهُمْ Until he was going to die, he died, but he put the matter of the Khilafah in a group and regarded me to be one of them. زَعَمَ أَنِّي أَحَدُهُمْ Meaning he came and he put me in a group and he said, yeah, you're with this group. What is Amir al-Mu'mineen trying to say? First, he's trying to say that I was never a part of the deciding group because the committee was rigged and set up to be against me. So I I never had a choice. I never had a voice from the beginning. He came and it looked like Amir al-Mu'mineen was a part of the six and he had a chance of being the Khalifa. But Amir al-Mu'mineen never had a chance from the beginning. And he tells Ibn Abbas, he tells him, they put me in a group that, you know that for sure I'm never going to be elected. I'm never going to be selected. Imagine you have a board and you have 10 people that have one view and one person who has a different view. Obviously, his word is never going to count. His word is never going to, no one's going to accept his word because he's put in a minority. He is in a minority. So he says, زعم أني أحدهم. He claimed that I was one of them, but I was never one of them. Other scholars, they understand this at a different way. He says, زعم أني أحدهم. He regarded me to be one of them, meaning he came and he placed me at the level of these individuals when I'm not even at their level. I was appointed by God on the day of Ghadir. I was appointed by Rasulullah. They come and they put me with these men who, one of them ran away in the war, in the battle. One of them, each one had their own issues. Each one had their own problems. They come and they put me. I was the first Muslim. I was the one who was with Rasulullah. I was raised by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They come and they put me with them. So زعم أني أحدهم, meaning I'm not even at their level. And then he says, فيا لله وللشورى متى اعترض الريب في مع الأول منهم حتى صرت أقرا إلى هذه النظائر لكني أسففت إذ أسفوا وطرت إثطاروا. He says, but good heavens, what had I to do with this consultation, this shura? Where was any doubt about me with regard to the first of them, that I was now considered akin to these ones? But I remained low when they were low and flew high when they flew high. Meaning he's trying to say, what kind of a rigged shura consultation is this? متى اعترض الريب في مع الأول منهم حتى صرت أقرا إلى هذه النظائر. He says, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, you can't even compare me with the first of them, meaning Abu Bakr. Meaning Abu Bakr was not even supposed to, I can't even be compared with Abu Bakr, that now they put me with this group. So now Abu Bakr comes and then Umar comes and then now they put me in a group of 6. Yalla, we're going to do you a favor. We're putting you in this group of 6 people. Maybe you get elected. Maybe you get selected. But then he says, لكني أسففت إذ أسفوا وطرت إثطاروا. However, I flew low when they flew low and I flew high when they flew high. What is he talking about? He's talking about the birds. Have you seen the birds? Sometimes a flock of birds, they fly together and they come down and they go up together. Basically, Amir al-Mu'mineen is trying to say, for the purpose of unity, I played along with this silly game of theirs, so that no one could come and say later on, oh, we could have, yeah, we were going to choose Ali ibn Abi Talib, but he refused to be a part of the 6. So therefore, we're excused that we didn't choose Ali ibn Abi Talib. No, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he made sure that no one has an excuse, because he offered himself. He offered his help, and then they went against him for the 3rd time. And the first time Abu Bakr, and then Umar, and then now Uthman has been chosen. But he says, I came and I played along so that later on, first for the purpose of unity, so that no one comes and says Ali ibn Abi Talib is breaking the unity of the Muslims. And second, so that no one could come and say, oh yeah, I would have picked Ali ibn Abi Talib, but he was not even in that group. If he was in that group, then he would have been elected. No, the issue was rigged against Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. And then he explains, he says, فَصَغَى رَجُلٌ مِّنْهُمْ لِضِعْنِهِ وَمَالَ الْآخَرَ لِصِهْرِهِ مَعَ هَنٍّ وَهَنٍ. He says, one of them turned against me, one of the 6. One of them turned against me because of his hatred, and the other got inclined the other way due to his in-law relationships, and this thing and that thing. So what is Amir al-Mu'mineen saying? He says, فَصَغَى رَجُلٌ مِّنْهُمْ لِضِعْنِهِ. One of them had hatred for Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now, this could have been either of the two. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, who had known hatred for Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, and he never gave bay'ah to Amir al-Mu'mineen. And Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, his son is Umar ibn Sa'd. So that's one who had hatred. And the second, it could also apply to Talha ibn Ubaidillah, who did not like Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Talha, he was with Taym, and because there was issue, we mentioned there was issue between Bani Hashim and Taym, right away he chose Uthman. And as soon as the Khilafah came to Amir al-Mu'mineen, we will explain later, Talha, he leaves and he goes to Mecca, and then from there he goes to Basra, and he is one of those who wage a war against Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. He had hatred for Amir al-Mu'mineen. So the hate, فَصَغَى رَجُلٌ مِّنْهُمْ, he's talking about one of them. So if we were to say that Talha was not even there in Mecca, according to some view, then that means he would be talking about Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. And if he was there, then it would apply to Talha, because Sa'd, he gave his vote to Abdurrahman ibn Auf. He says, whatever Abdurrahman ibn Auf chooses, then I will side with this person. And then he says, وَمَالَ الْآخَرْ لِصِهْرِهِ. And the second one, he voted for his brother-in-law, for his in-law. Who was that? That was Abdurrahman ibn Auf, who's married to Uthman's sister. So he's married to Uthman's sister. Of course, he's going to come and choose Uthman because of the family and marriage relationships. And then Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, مَعَ هَنٍّ وَهَنٍ, meaning and this thing and that thing. Basically, some silly, petty things. It means مَعَ هَنٍّ وَهَنٍ. Here, some, they come and they understand this, that Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he wanted the Khilafah for himself after Uthman. So what does he do? He comes and he votes for him. He tells him, you know what? I'm a rich man. I'm going to vote for my brother-in-law. I scratch his back. He scratches my back. The same way Abu Bakr and Umar, they scratched each other's back. In Saqifa, Umar, he comes and he's the first to give bay'ah to Abu Bakr. And then on his deathbed, Abu Bakr appoints Umar ibn al-Khattab. So he says, we're going to do the same thing. I vote for him now. He's going to vote for me. If I vote for Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ali ibn Abi Talib is a man of principles. Ali ibn Abi Talib is a man of values. Ali ibn Abi Talib is not going to come and vote for me. He's going to go and deal with it in a different way. But I could make a deal with Uthman. So this is what he had in mind, and this is what Amir al-Mu'mineen is referring to. Ma'ahan and wahan. But subhanallah, Imam Ali alayhi salam, after Abdurrahman ibn Auf, because he was the deciding vote. Talha and Zubayr are on one side. Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he came and he gave his vote to Uthman. He tells him, may there be animosity between you, that this animosity will not be resolved. Because he thought, he's my buddy, I'm going to vote for him. Later on, he's going to vote for me. Imam Ali says there's going to be animosity between you two. And this is exactly what happened. There was animosity between Abdurrahman ibn Auf, that they did not speak to each other after that day, until Uthman was killed. And one of those who instigated against Uthman was Abdurrahman ibn Auf himself. They were related. He's his brother-in-law, but they began to hate each other. And Abdurrahman ibn Auf did not ever speak to Uthman. And he instigated until Uthman was killed, because he chose him for the sake of this dunya, while he knew that Imam Ali was the one who was more worthy. They all knew Imam Ali was more worthy. Even Umar ibn al-Khattab, they asked him, when he picked those 6, they tell him, why did you pick these 6? He says, because these, I know that Rasulullah was satisfied with them. So then he calls them one by one, and he begins to give his honest opinion regarding every single one of them. He says, as for you, you're angry when you're one of them, Zubayr, he says, when you're calm, you're a mu'min, but when you're angry, you become this and that. Each one he gave them. He said about Uthman, he said, this man, if he comes to power, he's going to bring his whole family, his whole relatives. And this is exactly what happened. About Amir al-Mu'mineen, he said he's the one who will rule justly and rightfully, but he didn't select him, even though he knew that Imam Ali would be the one who would rule rightfully. So then Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, إِلَىٰ أَنْ قَامَ ثَالِثُ الْقَوْمِ نَافِجًا حَضْنَيْهِ بَيْنَ نَفِيلَيْهِ وَمُعْتَلِفِهِ. He says, till the third man of these people, meaning Uthman, because the first was Abu Bakr, and then Umar, and then Uthman, till the third man of these people stood up with having breasts between his dung and fodder. So here he says, having nafijan hafnay, meaning he has his chest up. What is this a sign of? If someone's walking and they have their chest up, meaning someone who's arrogant, someone who's very proud, someone who does not take opinions, someone who does not listen to other people, someone who does not listen to advisors. He says he came and he had his chest high, بين نثيليه ومعتلفه. Nathil is the excrement of the animal, the manure. They call that nathil. And mu'talaf is the alaf, is the food of the cattle. So basically, he's trying to say that he was so arrogant. It's an eloquent way of Amir al-Mu'minin saying that he was so proud that he made such a messy situation. Food and the excrement were all mixed together. You know, they say someone, they messed up. They made such a mess that, I don't want to use the foul language, but you know the expression when someone, you know, makes such a mess and the blank hits the fan. Basically, that's what Amir al-Mu'minin is trying to say. He says that نافجا حضنيه بين نثيله ومعتلفه. He was so proud between the food of the cattle and between his own excrement, meaning it was such a mess. So then he begins to describe what did Uthman begin to do. He says, وَقَامَ مَعَهُ بَنُو أَبِيهِ يَخْضِمُونَ مَالَ اللَّهِ خِضْمَ الْإِبْلِ نَبْتَةَ الرَّبِيعِ إِلَى أَنْ انْتَكَثَ عَلَيْهِ فَتْلُهُ وَأَجْهَزَ عَلَيْهِ عَمَلُهُ وَكَبَتَ بِهِ بَطْنَتُهُ. He says, once Uthman came to power, and with him, his children of his grandfather, meaning Bani Umayyah, the Umayyads. Some ask, how did Bani Umayyah come to power? Umayyah, when in the year 60 after Hijrah, they killed Imam al-Hussein. A war was declared, the Battle of Siffin against Amir al-Mu'minin, where thousands of Muslims were killed. How did Bani Umayyah become so empowered? It was because of Uthman. He came and he brought Bani Umayyah into power. So he says, and with him, the children of his grandfather, Umayyah also stood up, swallowing up Allah's wealth like a camel, devouring the foliage of spring, till his rope broke, his actions finished him, and his gluttony brought him down prostrate. So basically, he says, وَقَامَ مَعَهُ بَنُو أَبِيهِ. Bani Umayyah, we know the history of Bani Umayyah. It's not a secret that Bani Umayyah waged war, the battle of Badr, and the battle of Uhud, and the battle of Ahzab against Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And later on, after the opening of Mecca, they come and they join Islam. Muawiyah and Abu Sufyan and these men from Bani Umayyah, they come and they join. And some of them, they were kicked out of Medina. For example, one of them, Al-Hakam ibn al-As. Al-Hakam ibn al-As, he used to walk behind the Prophet making fun of him, making faces. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam kicked him out, and he excommunicated him, and he sent him to Ta'if, which is a place that has better weather than Medina. He sent him over there. He says, go and stay there, don't come here. Uthman, when he comes, he brings him back. And the son of this man, Al-Hakam ibn al-As, is Marwan ibn al-Hakam. He marries the daughter of Uthman, and he becomes the man who's leading and ruling the affairs of the Muslim government. So Uthman comes to power. As soon as he comes, he begins to give his relatives money here and there. This one, you get the zakat that comes from Africa. This one, you get this. You get 100,000 here and there. He started giving them. Abu Sufyan, the one who was fighting the Prophet in Badr and Uhud, he was blind the day Uthman was selected. He gathers Bani Umayyah, and then he begins to tell them, Ya Bani Umayyah, and this is narrated by Mas'udi and Tabari and Ibn Asakir. He begins to tell them, Ya Bani Umayyah, تلقفوها تلقف الكرة أما والذي يحلف به أبو سفيان لا جنة ولا نار ما زلت أرجوها لكم ولتصيرن إلى صبيانكم وراثة. He says, O Bani Umayyah, keep the Khilafah between you, pass it like a ball is passed between kids. You know how you pass it one to another? You could keep it, you could keep it with yourselves. He says, تلقفوها تلقف الكرة. And then he says, أما والذي يحلف به أبو سفيان. By the one that Abu Sufyan himself swears by. لا جنة ولا نار. There's no Jannah, there's no heaven, and there's no nar, and there's no hellfire. ما زلت أرجوها لكم, and I hope that this khilafah stays with you. وَلَتَصِيرَنَّ إِلَىٰ صِبْيَانِكُمْ وَرَاثَةً, and let it be with your children, with your kids. Let it be an issue of inheritance. And this is what exactly happened. After Uthman was killed, Muawiyah declared himself the Khalifa, the son of Abu Sufyan, and then he passed it on to Yazid, and then Yazid killed Imam al-Hussein, and then Marwan ibn al-Hakam, and it kept on going for 80 years. For 80 years or 90 years, until Bani Umayyah, they lost their power. It kept going and going and going. They killed so many of the Imams. Imam al-Baqir was the last of the Imams to be killed by Bani Umayyah. So many crimes were committed because Bani Umayyah were allowed to come to power, and it was because of those individuals who brought them to power. So Uthman began, there was so much corruption. Now, this is not what a Shi'i person is saying. These are according to the Sahaba, the Muslims of the time. They rebelled against the corruption of Uthman. See, when Abu Bakr and Umar were in the power, they kept the Khilafah at least within its boundaries. Yes, they did certain things which were deviations. They changed the laws of God, but at least they didn't, come and live such a lifestyle where they're so comfortable and they're doing this and that. They still kept the outer image of a Khalifa, even though deep inside they did a lot of changes. Uthman, no, he didn't care. Uthman, he started bringing his family. He started persecuting the Muslims. Abu Dhar, he started persecuting him. He sent Abu Dhar to die all alone in Rabada. Abdullah bin Mas'ud was beat up by the orders of Uthman. And so many acts of corruption took place, and a lot of money corruption, a lot of it that had to do with money. So now you have Muslims from Basra, Muslims from Kufa, Muslims from Egypt. They come and they rebel against Uthman until they kill Uthman. They kill him. The Khalifa, the third Khalifa of Rasulullah. Today some come and say Khalifa of Rasulullah. The Muslims, they killed him because they saw he was so corrupt. And after killing him, they refused to bury him in the Muslim cemetery. They buried him on the other side of the Baqiyah, and they refused to bury him in the Muslim cemetery. Later on, once Muawiyah came to power, he brought down the wall of the cemetery and he expanded the cemetery so that Uthman would be inside the cemetery. Once they kill him, and Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says exactly why he was killed. He says, إِلَىٰ أَنْ انْتَكَثَ عَلَيْهِ فَتْلُهُ. He says they came and they took, he brought Bani Umayyah, and they came and they started devouring the foliage of the spring. In the spring when the trees and the fruits, they first start growing, you're not supposed to touch them. You're supposed to wait for them to grow, and then you come and you pick the plants. He says, as soon as it's growing, Bani Umayyah, they came and they started eating like the camel eats nabtat al-rabi', whatever grows in the spring, which you're not supposed to touch at that time. You're supposed to wait. Meaning they didn't leave anything for the Muslims. إِلَىٰ أَنْ انْتَكَثَ عَلَيْهِ فَتْلُهُ, until his own actions finished him. And he caused his own demise, and it was his stomach, وَكَبَتَ بِهِ بَطْنَتُهُ, meaning his greed that brought him down, prostrating and falling to the ground. So the Muslims killed him. Now, of course, later on, you have two battles that are waged against Imam Ali: the battle of Jamal and the battle of Siffin. They were waged against Amir al-Mu'mineen with the excuse that Amir al-Mu'mineen had something to do with the murder of Uthman, even though Amir al-Mu'mineen tried to save the life of Uthman, but he had nothing to do with it. Then, once they killed him, then the Khilafah comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. I don't want to go too much longer. I'm going to continue the next part in the next session, inshallah, where we will conclude the khutbah al-Shaqshaqiya. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi tahirin.